Peace, Queen. Peace, beloved. Peace, beloved. Listen, before we go any further, first, welcome to World Talk with Kasim. We back. But I need for those who are watching it right now to tell me, can you hear me? Can you hear our voice? Listen, before we go any further, first, welcome to World Talk. I want to thank you all for showing up. You know what I mean? For taking initiative right now to be here with us. You know, it's been a journey. We back. I'm excited. You know, I'm overwhelmed with happiness to be back. Real Talk with Kasim. We are back. We are back. We are back for all those who have been with us throughout the journey. We want to take the initiative, the time to say thank you. Like, I want you to know, we want you to know that you are truly appreciated. Truly appreciated. It took us some time to come on because, you know, we haven't been here for a second. And had to get back in the midst of trying to make things right with the system, the technical aspect of the show. But if you can, in a comment, can you let me please know if you can hear the voice clear? Please let us know if you can hear the voice. And if you can hear it clear, please put it in the comment section. I would appreciate it. But without further ado, you know, we're going to get into this topic. You know, Donald Trump has become our president. Okay. Brother say he can hear it on Facebook, so we good. Donald Trump has become our president. There's some who agree. There are those who do not agree. But what we're going to do is we're going to dive into it today. We're going to dive into it. And who better off to have in this discussion today? No other than, you know, it's my cousin, solid brother, educator, working on his doctorate degree, although he already a doctor to us all. Everybody, please help me welcome to the screen my brother, your brother, our brother Marvin Walker.
Hey, what's up, family? What's going on? What's going on? It's the words of Gil Scott Heron. It's winter in America, and so what are we gonna do?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Pardon me. Hey, listen, brother. For those who don't know, who is Marvin Walker? Who is his brother? I said, working on his doctorate degree. For those who might not know, and more than likely there's very few. But please let those who might not know who you are know who you are.
Oh yes, well, again, my name is Marvin Walker, born and raised in Passaic, New Jersey. I would always say whatever I am and whatever I become has been shaped by family, friends, elders, and others, and really in the city of Passaic. And so I always hope to represent the best that our elders, your mom and dad, my mom and dad, many of those Black revolutionary spirits who have taught many of us, whether it's in the hallways of 6th Street, Aspen Place, or just walking down the street. Many of those who have struggled and fought, and the fight continues today. I taught at Passaic High School for over 31 years. I'm currently teaching at various colleges, whether it be Rutgers, Morgan State, Ramapo, and I'm also working on my doctorate at Morgan State University. That doctorate is focused on African American golfers, particularly African American golf courses in the state of New Jersey is my focus. But always glad to be here, always glad to try to represent the city of Passaic wherever I go, pretty much.
There you go. There you go. One more. My first question to you, brother, my first question to you would be, what is it that you, as a scholar, what do you think, how do you feel about whom we have to put the title before it now, President Donald Trump?
What do I think about Donald Trump? Not not much, to be honest with you. I think that Donald Trump is simply a continuation or a consolidation
Mm,
of white supremacy, capitalism, misogyny,
mm,
anti-blackness, etc. I think it's really just a continuation of something that was started at the founding of this particular nation. But I don't see just Donald Trump as a problem. I see electoral politics, period,
mm,
and the duopoly as a problem, meaning whether it be the Democrats or the
mhm,
Republicans. I think the idea that the master's tools will ever overthrow the master is really a fallacy on the part of Black people and all people who are seeking justice. It can't happen. It won't happen, whether it's under the Democrats or the Republicans. We have two political parties. We have the hard white nationalists that are in power now. And then we go back and forth between the hard white nationalists and the soft white nationalists, which would represent the Republican Party. My dream is that, number one, at some particular point, all people in general, and Black people specifically, wake up and understand that we're never going to get any justice out of any of these parties and begin to build something separate, a separate alternative from these parties, not just a Black political party, because that's just not enough, but a party of revolutionary Black, white, Latino, Native American, Asian brothers and sisters who see that the only way that the majority of people in this country are ever going to get justice is really by getting rid of both of these particular political parties and put the power in the hands of the people. But we have to be willing to do that kind of work. And specifically, when we talk about Black folks in this country, or I'm talking Black folks specifically and all revolutionary individuals in general, there's a couple of myths that we're going to have to address. They're long held myths that many of us have carried, yours truly included, that believes that a system of capitalism is ever going to liberate us. It was never designed to do that. It could never do that. Under the particular system of capitalism, is always going to be a system where few individuals benefit at the expense of the masses of people. And so we have to wake up to that ultimate realization. It starts in communities. It starts basically household from household, city to city, block to block, city to city, state to state, and then ultimately the country. But one of the other things is that the belief that we can learn or struggle as individuals should be out the window. Learning is a community thing. We learn in community. No individual, you see a bunch of books in the back, I got a bunch of books all over this house. But that means nothing if I'm sitting here as an individual. We learn in community. That's the best way we learn. No individual, and definitely not me, is smart enough to believe that we have the answers. But the answers come in community forums and getting together as a community. That's the basic way that we learn. There's a lot of stuff going on in regards to DEI, etc. But we have to remember that these particular things are really smoke screens. When you look at, let's take the example of Target. Before Target instituted DEI, and mind you, the DEIs that the companies were coming up with after the murder of our brother George Floyd, the massive protests that took place internationally, these companies came up with DEI initiatives because they understood that we were right at the point of overthrowing this whole corrupt system. So anytime that happens, capitalism adjusts. They make adjustments. And by making adjustments, what they do is they give a few handouts.
mhm,
But they were just like any other time in history, those were never genuine, and they were always ultimately going to be taken back. So let's just take Target and DEI, for example. Prior to DEI, I think the percentage of Black folks in upper management may have been about maybe 5%. That went to probably below 3%. I don't know the exacts, but it's something like that when DEI was instituted. So really you're talking about a few crumbs for a small bit of people. Now, I'm not saying that that shouldn't be in place, but what I'm ultimately saying is that in a system of white supremacy, in a system of capitalism, we're never going to get the turnaround that's going to address the needs of the masses of people. I'm not concerned about a few Black folks or a few Latino folks or a few gay and lesbian individuals getting into places. I'm looking for a system to be a part of building a system that looks out for the masses of people as opposed to the less than 1% or the 10% or the 20% that pretty much control 80 to 85% of all the resources that are in the country. So we need something new, but I tell you, for those who think that standing on the side of Donald Trump is something radical, this absolutely ain't it. And I'm not necessarily a Democrat. I, like Malcolm said, I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I have criticism and smoke for both sides. There's a gentleman by the name of Chris Hedges who kind of breaks down the difference between the parties. He said, right now, what we're having is a struggle in the system of capitalism. You have the corporate elite represented by the liberal Democrats, and then you have the oligarchic elite represented by the conservative Republicans. When oligarchic individuals get in power, they want to destroy everything because the idea is to destroy institutions so that their friends can kind of scoop all of them up and privatize. That's what they do. The corporate elite, which is the Democrats, want the status quo to stay in place because they make their money off of long-term investments. And that's all we have. So we can't go back from the corporate elites to oligarchic elites. We need to build and begin to build a revolutionary, serious third party on a local level, state level, and then ultimately the national level. So Donald Trump is a symptom of a disease, which is called capitalism, which is supported by the very Constitution that we believe is going to save our lives, the very same document that pretty much solidified slavery, Jim Crow, all levels of racism, sexism are embedded in that very document.
Hey Marv, let me ask you this. Pardon me. What do you talked about DEI? I want you to take the initiative to explain what DEI is, what it is, what's its purpose.
Right. The objective of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is just simply that. And honestly, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the folks that benefit the most from DEI, particularly, are white women and other white folks.
How would you say that? Why would you say
because
it? Because let me say this to you respectfully. The reason why I'm asking this is because these are the questions that are being asked out. Like a lot of individuals don't know what DEI stand for, which diversity, equity, and inclusion. They don't know what's diversity, what's equity, what's inclusion, and they don't know, like, when you put it together, like, what is it?
Right. Well, let's just talk. I'm not gonna. Let me not talk about what it does,
right,
or whether it's ineffective. But the attempt ultimately is inclusion. It's not trying to hire people who just based on race who are inferior in terms of intelligence and all those other things. I understand that that's what hits the streets. It was because in many instances, those individuals were simply overlooked it's like, let's expand the search in terms of individuals who we are who we believe deserve an opportunity, who were often ignored, who are often pushed to the side. It hasn't been effective simply because it was disingenuous of these corporations in the beginning. They did it because they understand that the country was going to be burned down to the ground if they didn't do something. And so this was the initiative. I mean, just thinking of it, yes, it makes sense. Expand the range that you would ultimately look, because for the most part, in corporate America, most CEOs are generally white folks, but in general, specifically white men. These CEOs, they ain't any smarter than anyone else. However, because since it's a buddy system, you just keep hiring your friends. It's about this, just as disingenuous as the Rooney Rule in professional football, which says when there's an opening, you have to at least interview one or two minority candidates. But when you put it that way, you see you can ultimately get around all of this stuff. Just put a white woman in the particular place. And here's the interesting thing. This is how crazy it is. Even affirmative action, mostly white women benefited from affirmative action. But when they asked them, a poll, how they felt about affirmative action, 75 to 77% of white women said they were against affirmative action, yet they were the beneficiaries
of it,
main beneficiaries of it. So yeah, it's supposed to expand the pool, but it doesn't do that simply because the people were disingenuous, even from the very beginning, and they really had no intentions. It was just something to cool down the masses, really, is what it turns out to be.
Listen, how, as you being an educator, highly in tune, astute in embracing of the educational system, what is your perspective far as when you hear Trump's administration is coming after the educational system?
Well, we in terms of tyrants and oligarchs, you want to control the dissemination of information. You want to attack things like liberal arts. You want to attack things like history, because you understand that you can't leave anything vulnerable. And by leaving the historical truths out there, you understand that ultimately people get to read them and are inspired by these various people. Let me say this from the beginning. Most of the things that we're talking about, one, it all falls under a capitalist system. That's number one. Anything that can be used to divide people in the capitalist system works for the people in power. But also underneath all of these initiatives is this anti-blackness. Anti-blackness is at the root of this settler colony. So when folks say DEI, that's just a quick way of saying black folk. Mm-hmm. Even though most black people don't benefit from it. When you say affirmative action, people are thinking black folk, even though the majority of black people didn't benefit from affirmative action initiatives. So the anti-blackness sits at the root of that. However, we have to understand that anti-blackness sits at the root, but if we're going to build this national coalition, we have to go beyond blackness, because it's not just that why people are oppressed. Listen, it's at the foundation, but it's not the only reason. Poor white folks who get fooled in many instances to think that millionaires care about them, and what they ultimately get, as Du Bois said, they get kind of paid in what you call a wage of whiteness, a good feeling of whiteness, yet they're broke as hell. That's no different than the overseers on plantations, who were poor white folks who didn't really benefit from the system, but they were just happy to be white. They had to give them something, because they understand that if you don't give them at least something like that, then the majority, then those oppressed groups particularly come together, similar to what happened in the 1600s in Virginia with Bacon's Rebellion. Although Nathaniel Bacon was an elite white planter, he was able to amass a movement of poor white slaves, indentured servants, and poor black folks to attack, I think it was the governor's house. It was ultimately put down. So they had to double and triple down on whiteness because they could not have white folks, black folks, even Native American folks, pretty much joining together. Let's jump ahead to the 1960s when the Black Panthers, the Young Patriots, which were a white group, the Young Lords, Puerto Rican brothers, later would be the Brown Berets, Mexican brothers and sisters, the American Indian movement. All these groups of people got together to form what was the original Rainbow Coalition. They had the same, not Jesse Jackson took the term, but it originated with Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers in Chicago.
Right.
Jesse Jackson took the term, but ultimately their work, of course, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were assassinated by the pigs in Chicago. But ultimately, that would lead to the election of Harold Washington, the first black mayor of Chicago. But it was thinking more radical than just electoral politics. But electoral politics is a tool, but it's not the only tool. And if we're going to play the game, we're going to have to learn how to play it a lot better. So exchanging slave masters from Democrats to Republicans ain't ever going to free us. I don't care what anyone says. If you believe that, then you are absolutely insane. If you believe that Trump or Biden or anyone that comes under those umbrellas are going to save us, because they're not. We are our own liberators, period.
Right. That's a fact. That is a fact. Hey, Mark.
Uh-huh.
One, because I'm going around. I'm
Right.
talking about the different things that was brought to my attention, and particularly nowadays pertaining to since Trump has been in office, but we're tying it all together.
Right.
Another thing that's major that's taking place. Well, let's talk about this because there's a couple of, not another thing. There are major things that are taking place, but I want you to touch on this too. The food that has recent, it always been, the information has always been around. It has always been out, but recently it's become like a bomb, like hit everybody, boom, especially on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Far as the food that we eat and the amount of additives, chemicals, and things of that nature that's in it, opposed to the food that we eat is banned in other countries.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Because there are people now that's uprising. There's protests that's taking place pertaining to this what's the word I can use? This inequality.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Not so much how do you feel about it, because I don't want it to be personal when it's a generalized mishaps that's taking place. Give me how your take on it.
Yeah, well, absolutely, man. It's intellectually, but it should be personal because people are suffering. And usually when you look at the quality of food in many urban areas where many Black and Latino people live, we live in pretty much food deserts. And in a lot of instances, we get lower quality, more food with greater levels of pesticides in them, cheaper grades of food, and end up paying more money for those particular foods. So you could go to a town, a couple of towns over, and get a better quality of food, and things such as this. You get better quality of food. But ultimately, those are think about it though. With the Trump administration, I mean, it's bad anyway. So I don't want to just lay that on Donald Trump, who's absolutely super horrible. But let's just say that they begin to gut the FDA. Then now what? There was very there were things that were monitored by the FDA, not a perfect organization, but at least an organization. If you got that, then what are we talking about now? We're talking about even more highly chemical foods coming into all sorts of particular things that are going to food that are in the particular foods. So some of these agencies, many of these agencies, are at least protective agencies, or at least a wall of protection, not perfect protection. But a lot of that falls under the purview of organizations like the Food and Drug Administration. And so if that organization is gutted, which I expect it to be, because those elite individuals who could care less about the quality of food, they're just trying to sell food, or all sorts of medications, or things, etc., that are harmful to individuals, not to be on the, because I got to make something clear. We get to the point where, here's the thing, man, I'm not a scientist, and neither are many of the people who make a lot of comments about vaccines this or vaccines that. I'm absolutely not that. But what I do trust in many instances are radical doctors, radical scholars, etc., who are MDs, who are scientists that particularly study these things. I keep my I lean on those individuals to guide me in areas where I don't ultimately know, because there's a lot of disinformation going around about a lot of different things that keeps us scurrying around. And ultimately, when we begin to look at it, it's, and the other thing before I go there, I can't talk as just an individual, because I can speak as an individual, but we all have responsibilities on these platforms simply because we speak to folks. Folks trust us. Folks trust you. Folks trust me. Folks trust other people to bring them valuable information, because maybe they don't have the time to go look it up because they're busy working 3 to 4 jobs, taking care of their kids. So they rely on us to at least bring them balanced information. And I think that we ultimately have to do that. And we have to be even very careful in terms of what we bring in front of the people, ultimately. But yeah, that is a problem, but it's always been a problem in terms of the level of foods, the toxins in the foods that we ultimately get. Listen, the toxins in the water, think about incidents in Detroit and other cities around the country. And most of those areas with the toxic soil, etc., are places where poor people ultimately live, which is why, and both parties participate in this nonsense. We need something, we need an alternative to what we have, because this ain't going to work for us.
There's a lot of comparisons going on, coming from the angle or the perspective between President Biden and President Trump, or President Biden's administration and President Trump's administration. Whereas there are strong arguments that are taking place,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some who saying, well, Trump in these couple of weeks, months that he's been here, he's been doing so much more than what Biden did in the last 2 years. What's your perspective of that?
Wait, what do you mean by that in terms of so much?
When they say, like, for example, him with the ICE, this the big thing with the ICE thing. Look, he's coming in, he's taking immigrants out. One thing that we respect about Trump is he's doing exactly everything that he said that he was going to do, and beyond, opposed to Biden saying he was going to do more or less say talk about immigration too far as what is deemed as quote unquote the immigrants, and they did nothing. What's your perspective on that?
I mean, look, in terms of removing immigrants from this country, just look at the Biden beats Trump, and Obama probably beats Biden. So they were removing immigrants out of this country. But as Black folks, we go down some Black, not all of us, but there are a group of Black folks in our community, who sound just like white supremacists when they begin to come out against immigrants. And
Mm.
we go with there's so many myths about immigration that we hold on to, whether it's they commit the most crimes, they don't pay any taxes, they don't do this, they don't do that, when they're the least likely to commit crimes. Most of them there, most folks, most immigrants in this country are not illegal. They just overstay their visas
Mm.
generally. But we go on with all of this stuff. I have no, first of all, I have no respect for Trump. I can't respect that, and I can't respect what they bring. But I'm saying this at the same time, I can't respect, if you hold the office of the presidency, you are in charge of the American empire. That is who you are. And that has led to global destruction. And we never talk about this. There's a reason why there are many immigrants who come to this country, just like there were many European immigrants still coming to this country. America, probably since maybe after World War I, or specifically World War II, has done so much damage in these particular countries, whether it's assassinating leaders, disrupting economies. Those folks who are running from poverty are running from poverty that would generally cause, for the most part, by American geopolitical policies. This is why many of those folks, you name a country, and we can pinpoint general American corporations, American government involvement. The CIA is one. Nelson Mandela said something. He said, if two neighboring countries are fighting with each other, America has visited one of those countries. What is he talking
Mhm.
about? Meaning that the pot was stirred by
Mhm.
American geopolitics, which generally operates to further capitalism at
Right,
all costs.
right, right. Peace and blessings, brother Dwayne Giles, um,
Brother
Sister
D.
Kiri,
Giles, what's up?
Conyers. Look,
Brother
Marv, we
Kerry,
have a
what's going
question.
on, brother?
It says, what are we doing? I mean, pardon me, what are we going to
Oh,
do as a global force to save ourselves? Very few leaders are speaking up, unlike yourself.
oh, absolutely. That's my Baba there, Baba Kerry. What's
Other
going on,
brother.
my brother?
Peace. Salute, King.
Absolutely. And I gotta get with you, man. Got a few people that want to have some work done. But here's the thing that this is how I look at these global politics. It ultimately starts local, and it starts with radical individuals pretty much coming together. Interesting enough, I've been toying with this idea, right? Inspired by Sly Stone, called the Everyday People's Political Party, EP3. And what I would like to be a part of, you know, getting close to 60. So, um, you know, Dane, hopefully I get another 30 out of this thing, but only the will of God knows that. Uh, I would like to be a part of a radical level of politics and organizing, which ultimately means that we need first of all, we have to move beyond capitalism as a method to save us. So let me just get that out of the way. Black capitalism ain't gonna save us. No capitalism ain't gonna save us. People run around and they're talking about, well, let's rebuild Black Wall Street, right? Cool. But here's the thing, what we don't look at, there was a lot of poverty, Black poverty, in the very rich area known as Black Wall Street. So what am I talking about? There were a very small elite amount of Black folks. I'm gonna get back to Kerry's question. But the majority of Black folks were ultimately struggling and living in substandard houses. So Black capitalism is not going to save us. It can't. It's barely saving itself. But it's going to be whatever the solution is, and that's a communal thing. We can't operate as individuals. We have to come together as a community. Absolutely, the solutions are going to come from the bottom up. But whatever it is going to be outside of these two political parties. because the two political parties can't save us. They weren't designed to save us. They're the oligarchs versus the corporate elite. So it has to be a bottom-up movement. Secondly, it's going to have to be a movement. There are not enough black folks in this country. So for whatever you all think, that ain't going to be enough. It's going to have to be a cross-cultural revolutionary movement that ultimately moves beyond race, beyond class, beyond gender. All of those issues are important. You can't go talking to poor white folks just simply about race because they don't feel that. They feel class. But they have to understand that race is a thing that keeps them separated from their ultimate class interests. They have to understand that. Then we can have the discussion. We have to ultimately deal with issues of gender because people are oppressed. Race, class, gender, sexuality. Now, there's some, I'm talking to black folks now, there's some Negroes who we ain't never going to get back, and that's okay. They could go on because they're only as useful. They should be no use to us, but they're only useful to those in power to keep a wedge between, to be the wedge, to keep a wedge between us and them. That's ultimately all they ultimately do. But it's gonna have to be cross-cultural, revolutionary. And my thing is that I'm like our ancestors, our revolutionary ancestors, the sisters and brothers who fought for us to see a better day. They fought for a day that they wouldn't even see. So if we're in your 50s and your 60s, maybe your late 40s, we're trying to build something. So not only that our children can live in a freer, brighter world, but that all children can live in a freer, brighter world. When blackness is free, the whole world is free when blackness is operating righteously. When blackness takes on the ideology of white supremacy, it becomes just as dangerous. Listen, Fred Hampton said a black capitalist is as worse as a white capitalist. We don't want any capitalists. Absolutely. We want them all to go. And George Jackson said in 1971, I think it's 71 or maybe 70, that fascism is already here. We talking about fascism coming. George Jackson said, what the hell you talking about? Fascism is already here, was at the foundation of this settler colony. But it's going to be local. It's going to start local because we control that. You notice that all of these white nationalists, and I'm not talking about white revolutionary folks. See, that's a different category. So we got to get away from that. Right. This idea of white supremacists and revolutionary white folks. Who would you rather have? Show of hands, Clarence Thomas or John Brown? John Brown, white man, revolutionary. Clarence Thomas, I don't have to say the rest. So we have to get beyond just skin. It's like H. Rap Brown said, being black is necessary, but not sufficient. That ain't enough. Your skin color ain't enough to get you into this game by itself, but it has to start local. And we can't politicians cannot be given to us. We need to be looking at some 10th, 11th, 12th graders, some of these young folks out of college that the community nurtures with the values of the community. So when they get in the Board of Education or when they become a part of City Hall, whether it be the mayor, or what have you, that they serve the interests of all the people that are in the city. And the other thing, here's another myth, and I hear it all the time, and it's almost sickening to a sense, but I understand why it works. 85% of the resources are snatched up, right? 15%. So when you say, man, Latinos are getting everything, or the Asians or the Arabs and all of these other folks are getting everything, understand that we are sitting here fighting over crumbs. So whatever they get, they're crumbs that drop off of the oppressor's table. They're crumbs. What we should be seeking is an equitable system, which can't happen ultimately under capitalism. And I'm going to throw something out here that may sound crazy, but I want you all to think about this, right? Let's just say that you're an investor. You ultimately invest in properties. You pay, I don't know, let's just say you pay $100,000, $200,000 to buy an apartment complex. I know it's much more than that, but I'm just trying to make a point. In an equitable system, outside of capitalism, once that $200,000 investment is given back, everything else should basically be split. And should be split between the folks that pay the rent. I know that sounds crazy, but the folks that pay the rent and the person that made the initial investment. Why do I say that? I say that because you are now putting money in an individual's pocket that only invested $200,000, when now you are the ones who should be getting a piece of that after that initial investment is gotten back. Okay, now we're going to split this because we're both. What work, once a person invests, what work are they actually doing beyond that? But we're taught in schools, well, they make the initial investment. Okay, you got your money back, player or playerette. Cool. Now the rest of this should be used by the community, because we're the ones busting our asses to go out and work, to pay this rent, to do all of that particular stuff. So now let's split it. Let's split it right down the middle. That's the kind of equitable system I'm talking about. Listen, we could end poverty in this country easily. It might take about 30 to let's say it takes about $70 billion to end homelessness and poverty in this country. Man, that's a few of those missiles that Boeing and all these other places create. Maybe a few bombs here, a few bombs there. We don't need many because we're way ahead of the other countries that are producing bombs. They can't catch up in 100 years if we stop making them now. So we could end poverty right now. Most folks are not concerned about being millionaires or thousandaires or whatever. Most people would be satisfied with, I want to be able to pay my bills. I want to be in decent housing. I want to be able to put my kids in college, and I want to retire at a decent age. Capitalism is almost becoming like the slave system where people have to work until they die. Nobody should have to do that. And understand, for those of you, and listen, I don't give a shit about the Democrats, period. I think the Democrats, if I pray that the Democrats go the way of the Whig Party of the 1850s. They couldn't bring it together around slavery. They dissolved. The Republican Party that you know now came around the 1850s, and they pretty much were able to win the election around slavery. I don't care if their hearts weren't in it. That was their platform, right? They were able to do that, win the ultimately elections. Slavery ultimately ended. We need to get rid of the goddamn Democratic Party. I'm sorry for you. No, I'm not sorry for you, Democrats. Look, we have to build something that's revolutionary, that addresses the needs of all the people. And the Democrats don't do that, and damn sure the Republicans aren't absolutely could give a shit about, excuse my French, could give a shit about anybody. So Trump is a problem, but he ain't the problem. Biden is a problem, but he ain't the problem. Genocide was taking place under Biden, and genocide continues under Donald Trump. What's in many instances, there are nuanced differences, absolutely. I'm not going to dismiss that. There's a lot of shock and awe that's taking place. There are many people that are ultimately getting hurt. Even more people that I wish wouldn't get hurt. But that's going to be on us to organize as fast as we can. It doesn't happen as individuals. It happens in organizations. So if you're not in an organization, get in an organization. If it's not radical enough for you, make the damn organization radical. But black faces and high faces are not enough. We are beyond that. We ultimately been beyond that. And one other thing I would like to address, because there's been a lot of talk about why do we have Black History Month. I mean, I shouldn't have to ultimately address this, but I will. If it wasn't important, why do you think the oppressors of humanity, or I'm going to call them the enemies of the sun? What's up, my good sister? Power to the people, always. I miss you too. Why do you think the enemies of the sun are trying to get rid of it? Not only that, but yes, we should celebrate it in our homes. The highlight, of course, is February. Well, it's really not the highlight. If you're familiar with Black August, please put it in the chat. If you're familiar with Black August. So we have 2 months. See, y'all were complaining. We got 2 months, celebration and a commemoration. Black August basically is a celebration of the radical Black tradition in this country and globally. I repeat that, the radical Black tradition that wasn't compromised, that understood that the system of capitalism, the system that exists, the fascism, has to ultimately go. So it's been celebrated since I think the 1980s ultimately. So if you're tired of Black History Month, you shouldn't be. You should be
That's right.
celebrating it every day. But
That's
if you
right.
can't, you should also participate in Black August celebrations, which go around all over the country. And so for many of you that are familiar with it, for those who are not, we need to begin to bring up and highlight the Black radical tradition as well as what goes on in February.
And let me say this to some of you all. Real Talk with Kasim is
Peace and love, my brother.
Real Talk with Kasim is also on YouTube. So we would like for you all to go to YouTube, Real Talk with Kasim, subscribe, hit the like button. It'll help the channel grow. Please go to YouTube, Real Talk with Kasim. Please hit the like button. Brother Marv, we had a question.
Yes.
Came to me from love of my life.
Mhm.
Bev, she says, there's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot of talk about dismantling the Department of Education. Do
Right.
the DEI play a part in that? Does it play a part in that?
Well, in terms of DEI and the Department of Education, what has been this, again, there's a history to all of this. Since the 1950s. So the enemy of the sun has a long plan. And they've been going after education since the 1950s. In fact, they've ultimately have been going after a more equitable society, relatively speaking, since the 1930s. But since the 1950s, Milton Friedman, the godfather of modern capitalism in general, basically was talking about these charter schools. Now, again, sometimes we jump on bandwagons that we shouldn't be on. I think a good thing would be if it's supported by a white supremacist, a white nationalist, capitalist, we probably better rethink that. Leave that alone. So he was talking about charter schools since like the 1950s, I think it was. So they've been building because they want to privatize education ultimately. So when you get rid of the Department of Education, you begin to remove basic standards, typically. No one to have to nationally monitor education if they gut it. Reagan tried, it didn't happen. They're going to gut it and put Trump white nationalist cronies in those positions, but I don't think they're ultimately going to get rid of it. But it's going to ultimately have effects, particularly the folks that are closest to the pain that are going to be the people who are going to be affected by it. So maybe they'll say, well, if you can't teach particular courses or you won't get federal funding. You have to understand that federal funding is important for minority communities who are generally poorer communities, not just because of their efforts, but simply because of the very system. I know people say, man, you got to stop talking about racism. You got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Nobody's pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. And I will say this, there's been no group of people in this country not even close. Maybe there's Native Americans. Native Americans. Can never forget our Native American brothers and
That's right.
sisters who
Right.
have been the force of various levels of oppression. So when you talk about, people talk about, well, we shouldn't, nobody should be looking for government handouts. The country is a goddamn government handout. There were two, and I'm going back to this history, so that's my field. There were two Homestead Acts. One, I think it was in 1960. Then there was a Southern Homestead Act. I think that was 66, 67. And so people basically, by filling out for a small filing fee, you were given plots of land. Now, a lot of the land wasn't great land, but there was probably about 1.6 million people that had access when you combine those two Homestead Acts. Out of 1.6 million people, Black folks got access to maybe only 3,000 to 5,000 Black people got access to those Homestead Acts. So you might say, "Oh, brother, that was in the past." See, this is why we get beat. It was in the past. When they looked into the year 2000, they found that 46 million Americans could trace a good portion of their wealth to those two Homestead Acts. During and so we think about after the Great Depression, the New Deal, the Black folks who were mainly maids, butlers, etc., weren't covered by Social Security probably until the 1950s, right? When those block grants came to particular states, the benefits came in block grants to states to disseminate whatever way they wanted to. Many Black folks didn't get the benefits of them. Those Black GIs weren't able to buy houses. The housing authorities basically wrote up contracts that said if you sold houses to Black folks or other groups of minority groups, you can't get these loans. FHA loans is what they were. So ultimately, we're talking about a system that has hooked folks up. There's my brother. That's my brother right there. We got to get that brother on. 6th Street's finest right there, Kasim.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
That's it, my man. He keeps it radical. I'm light compared to what Marco would bring. He bring the smoke and the fire. He said, burn this motherfucker down. And that's absolutely.
That's a fact.
And so what we're talking about is folks who have been basically given particular benefits. And I'm not saying that they didn't deserve that, but as well, Black and Latino and Asian, Native American brothers and sisters should have been able to enjoy those benefits. But capitalism doesn't allow that. It gives out a few crumbs to the few, and we fight over the crumbs instead of organizing under our common interests across the board. We understand that race is a social construction. Absolutely. It is that. But it's used as a tool of capitalism to keep individuals separated.
Hey, Mark, when it's often talked about, I don't even like to really hear it anymore. Mm-hmm. When people are talking about coming together, right? They're always talking about and particularly us Black folk, we need to come together.
Brother, right.
How long have we been saying, Brother Tariq, walaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh, big bro. Peace and blessings to you and the family, King. And also, let me send a shout out because when people take the initiative to watch the show or they comment, I like to acknowledge them.
Absolutely.
So we'd like to acknowledge, say peace and blessings to the kings and queens, the King Tariq, King Marco, the King Eric Hayes, peace and blessings, the King Brian Shepard, salamu alaikum.
My man.
King Gregory Nelson. And we got the Queens Karen Oliver. We got the King Najee Salam. Walaikum assalam, Sheikh. And of course your Baba, Kerry Kanyas.
Absolutely, Baba Kerry. What's going on for sure?
And also brother DJ Giles, Dwayne Giles.
My man, right?
My brother, thank you all for taking initiative and the time to come in and build with us at Real Talk with Kasim. As you know, we've been off for a while trying to get some things together, and particularly dealing with life struggles and life challenges. but we're back now. We are back now. We give credit to the universal God, and we back, and we'll be here every Saturday. Every Saturday, inshallah, God willing, if the universe allows and provides the
That's it.
opportunities for us, we will be here on Saturdays. Now we was looking at for the hours from 2 to 3, right? When during the day people more relaxed, they in tune before they go out, they can get some information. And due to some things that we had to take care of today, this is why we came on this evening. But I would like to know from you all in the comments. What we would like to know from you all in the comments is, what time do you think is a better time for Saturdays? Do you think 2 in the afternoon is better, or do you think in the evening, like say 8 o'clock in the evening, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening is better? And let me say this to you all as well: is that, you know, Dr. Marvin is not just the doctor, it's also my family member, but he's also for you. You know, we gave him this title a long time ago. Real Talk with Kasim. He's our minister of information. You know what I mean? He's the Real
That's it.
Talk with Kasim's minister of information. So I want you all to know that. The King Kerry says to you, brother, divine forces from every corner of the earth, from above and beyond, is bringing us all together.
That's
Timing
right.
is essential. Yeah,
That listen.
that's deep.
Well,
But
the
let me say
Bible.
this. Let me say
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
because in talking about that is why I don't like to hear it. Is because unbeknown to most of us, the coming together is already existing, and it's not that it didn't ever exist. It's being more collaborative now, but it's just not like when people come together with protest signs and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Because everything is not about a protest where you have to have signs and coming up. But our coming together is here. So I don't ever want people to think that we are not united, because I know for a fact that any given time Marvin makes a call and he needs us there, we're coming. So that shows unification right there. So if we have to learn how to connect with each other in order to bring all of us together, because like you said, we are connected. I'm just meeting the brother Kerry tonight. I'm meeting him on the show. But now,
That you absolutely.
you know,
Yeah,
and that's
please.
brother Dr. Marv's people. So
That,
now he's
that's
my
my
people. So
mentor
that
right there,
right.
baby.
So now
No
that's my
question.
brother. So we connected. So our coming together is true. So don't let nobody ever tell us that we're not, because I think that's subliminally subjected into our mindsets for us to detach instead of attach. And also, brother, oh, and let me say this to the brother. Like you said, let me read it again. The brother said, divine forces from every corner of the earth, from above and beyond, is bringing us together. Timing is essential. That's a fact. Marv, you was gonna say to that. And look,
No,
while
no,
you
no,
speak,
no. I'm saying absolutely. That is 100%. But
and,
I say this. It's a BC, brother
no, no,
BC.
go ahead. Finish with the brother right here. What you were
No, no,
saying to
no.
that.
No. I agree 100% with that. But one of the things I say is that there's a difference between mobilization and organization. After George Floyd, there was a lot of mobilization. People came out. People were protesting. But we have to also understand that the empire always strikes back. The
Facts.
enemies of the sun always strike back. So we have to take advantage of what Brother Baba Carey is laying out. Divine forces are bringing us together. Now that we're together, time is essential. What are we going? What are we going to? What are we going to do once we ultimately get together? Like we're talking about various protests, my brother. Well, they're talking about various protests or boycotts or those particular things. My thing is, um, what's the purpose of the boycotts? I agree with them,
Of
but
course.
I think that the purpose of these particular boycotts, and again, it's we're talking about mobilizing folks cross culturally because it has to be that, as Brother Kerry is talking about.
Right.
But here's the thing:
Pardon me.
just like George Floyd and folks gave us some crumbs, those crumbs were taken off the table quickly. We got folks who are getting rid of DEI. Trump ain't even asked them to get rid of it. They ain't even have to do it, and they went to do it for the fear. So we need to begin to strike some fear in folks. If we're gonna boycott someone, I don't even use that lightly. The purpose ain't enough of black. This is why I'm saying you got to go beyond just blackness. It's bigger than blackness if we're going to heal this whole damn planet, right? It's got to be bigger than that. Our objective should be to shut the shit, whatever particular company, we should be talking about shutting that shit down.
ASAP.
Totally.
ASAP.
So that they understand that if you ever jump out of line, if any enemy of the sun jumps out of line, you already know what it's going to be. It's going to be. And, you know, we the righteous are the masses of people. We're just not organized.
That's right. Let me get to this.
Brother. As Malcolm would say.
Brother, the King Dwayne Giles said, my brother is now Dr. Dwayne Giles, criminal justice.
There it is.
Peace and blessings, brother.
And we gonna get that, gotta get that brother on the show. But when we do get together, we have to begin to understand. One of the things we have to do, first of all, this is communal study. We can't listen, man. There's so many brilliant people out there, man. You know, forget about me and I know something. Everybody brings something to the table. Everybody brings something to the table, and we need to. What does the community want? Those are the questions that we ultimately have to ask. It's not just one individual, because no one can carry that. You know, it's a movement of people that has to exactly. That's what it is, right? that's right. But that's what it is. But see, what happens is that the community has to define the objectives. Because listen, I love Brother Jesse, and I know he's, suffering through Alzheimer's, right? Ultimately. But our movements cannot be co-opted by just a few Negroes, or a few Latinos, or a few Native Americans, or a few trans, or getting in. It has to be a whole different system. It has to be. My brother, love you back.
Hey, Mark, check this out.
What's up?
The King Brian said, I was just reading about family wealth built off the Homestead Act. I also watched the series Us that depicted the atrocities of the block grants that disqualified blacks to be able to purchase homes in certain communities in California at the time. Now, listen, I'm going to let you tap into that. While you do that, I'm going to step off for 1 second. I'm going to give you the whole stage for a second. Is that cool with you, Mark?
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, no problem. But absolutely, to address what BC is talking about, we're talking about government policies during the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Black folks who ultimately had the money to buy housing. Latino folks who had the money to buy housing. Asian folks who had the money to buy housing were ultimately discriminated against via the Fair Housing Authority. We're not even going to talk about, we're going to talk about it, the highway systems that ultimately cut through Black and Latino communities all over this country. You know, when they were talking about building shucks right around here, we're talking about 280. I think it's 78. You wonder if you've been down to Georgia, why the hell are these highways so crazy? It's because they basically were going around particular white neighborhoods and cutting through Black neighborhoods. That's ultimately what's happening with the building of the highway system. In fact, if Marco can post that particular book that he told me about the building of lands in New York City, I forgot the guy's name. But Marco knows it because he read the book. It's a thick book for those of you that will want to read it. But this is happening all over the country. And as Brian talks about, these were government policies, ladies and gentlemen, government policies that basically discriminated against people of color, Black folks in particular in this country who had the money to buy housing. Most wealth comes from housing, but again, there's a couple of myths, because if we're going to organize, we got to organize and begin to challenge some long-held myths. If we could get up the brother on the show, and hopefully I could speak to him because he's at the university. His name is Jared Ball, and he wrote out a book. It's in his second edition. It's called The Myth of Black Buying Power. It's called The Myth of Black Buying Power by a Jared Ball. It's an excellent book. And it's called The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. If I can get that book up, it's worth putting your hands on, ladies and gentlemen. This is the book here. The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. He talks about this. In fact, this is what I want you to do since we're using AI. I want you to basically, with your smartphones, just put in this. I put in a statement the other day, and it says, there is really no way to trace a dollar circulating in the community. So I put that in. And what it ultimately said, and I forget how I did it, is that we talk about how many times a dollar's in the Asian community, the Black community, or all these communities. How the hell is somebody going to trace a dollar? You can't. And when we talk about buying power, that's, according to Dr. Ball, that was a marketing tool. Because even if someone said that the Black community has, I don't know, $10 trillion, you really don't, because they're putting together a composite that doesn't take into consideration you got to pay bills, you have to do these particular things. So it's really not that. But I don't want to disrespect Dr. Ball. You have to read the book because he absolutely breaks it down. His specialty is Africana Studies and Media Studies. He's at Morgan State University. If you want to see him regularly, he's on Black Liberation Media, which you can see on YouTube. But there's no way of being able to do that. The way folks got their riches is through political power and public policy. That's how they gained their riches. No one got rich just working hard. In fact, the people that have the most money do the least amount of work. That's pretty much how it ultimately works. We don't want a system that's like that. We don't want a system that exploits individuals. And as I said earlier, look, once you get your money back, investor, cool, get your money back. But what we want is now it should be split. If I'm living in 6th Street or I'm living in Aspen Place or whatever, but these are different. I'm talking more so about private housing. That's different than something that's basically federal housing or state-sponsored housing. But when it comes to private, once you get your money back, then we need to split the rest of it if I'm paying you rent. And I know that sounds like a very strange concept, but it absolutely makes sense, ladies and gentlemen. So one of the things I would like is for us to begin a lot of community reading. That's an important first step for us to begin to build. Look, since most of you all are living in Passaic or still in the city of Passaic, we can start this, shucks, and we have an online reading club, but it has to move ultimately beyond that. But we have to begin to get our information down. Listen, the only reason I know what I know is by being in community, like with brothers like Marco, with sisters like Thariah, with brothers like Rob Inclan, with many other folks like Kasim, my brother Ronald Walker, Malik Pyron, Brother Carey, and others, because that's how we ultimately learn. We learn in community, we build in community. We're not always going to agree, but at least when we come out with a movement, we understand exactly, so we at least understand the will of the people. This book, I think you can download it, Brother Jared said. And Brother Well, Kasim, we got to get this brother on the show.
Let's get him on.
Yeah, maybe I could catch up with him this week, but we can get him on. And that's what it is. Folks have done the work, but the most important, again, the scholars are the people are the important. There's the book. Robert Moses' biography, The Power Broker, would be an excellent book to read. So then you can begin to see how these cities are ultimately designed and how, at least in that book, a portion of New York City cuts through various Black and Latino GI Bill. Yes, right. The GI Bill, that if Black and Latino folks could take advantage of that, we would be in a better economic system. Right. I gotta check BC because I know Dr. Ball says that you can download the book. And I'm gonna actually ask him. Hopefully, maybe I'll see him. I don't know. I think I'm in Morgan Tuesdays, Thursdays. I think he's Monday, Wednesday, so I may not see him. But there are a lot of other books, right? The system is built for owners. Exactly. So when we look back at the Constitution, and we look at those folks that were in those rooms, we understand that they were designing a system to protect their interests. That was ultimately it.
Brother BC said it was deep because when the people went to the bank, it was written in the deeds not to sell the blacks.
Right, exactly. And exactly. It was written in the deeds. And listen, we're talking about some of those things were still in deeds, even though it became illegal, unconstitutional in I think it's 68, I think it is. Maybe earlier than that. They were still in the deeds. But again, these neighborhoods were already set, particularly in stone, generally. But as I said, we have to move it beyond just race because it's not just race. It's the system of capitalism that exploits everybody. And we have to begin to do that. But we're not going to be able to buy our way out of this. That ain't going to do it. There ain't no, listen, black capitalism ain't going to free nobody. It's not. Now, as the Panthers talk about, this idea of what did the Panthers say? Survival pending revolution.
Mm.
I tell my son this all the time as he begins to enter the world. I say, listen, man, people are doing what they have to do to survive. And I'm not talking about selling out, folks. That's a whole different story.
Right.
But I don't want you to ever get on TV or anywhere, wherever you at, and say that the thing that worked for me is the solution for all people, because it's not. Right. It's bigger than just race is important, but it's bigger than that. We have to go beyond that. We can't be these what do they call these folks? Not isolationists, reductionists, meaning that you reduce everything to one thing. You reduce it to just race, reduce it to class, you reduce it to gender. It's all of that. But all of that operates under the system of capitalism, which we have to gain and understand. Capitalism ain't freeing nobody. As Brother Martinez said, it was a system designed for the owners. And of course, a few people are going to get in there. Like I saw a few of y'all cousins at the Trump Black History Month celebration, dancing around. And, there was a book by Derek Bell called Faces at the Bottom of the Well. And there was one called a chapter called The Space Traders, where these Martians come. The Earth was struggling. All nations were kind of going broke. And so Martians basically showed up and they said, we can give you all sorts of gold, but you got to give us all your black people. And there were black folks running around saying, that ain't going to happen. But then it hit Congress. It hit the Senate. It was going around. They got one black man who was going around trying to convince black people to get on these spaceships with Martians, right? So ultimately, what happens is that it's either an executive order or, yeah, right, there it is, no question, right? Them jokers, right? Long lost cousins. With friends like them, we don't need enemies. So at the end of the book, at the end of the chapter, The brother that was helping to convince black people to pretty much get on those spaceships with the Martians, they pushed his butt on there and his family. And so that should be a sign for all of those people that are dancing around in the White House. They don't give a shit about you. And understand that you'll be used as a tool. Now, if you got in here late, don't come on here saying, well, what about Biden? Listen, either party. I said we need an independent revolutionary
That's
party.
a fact.
You ain't got me on nobody's plantation except the power to all people plantation. I'll stay on that plantation forever.
That's right.
But we have to begin to build a thing that we may not see, but that's okay. Because so did our ancestors. Our ancestors built or fought for something that they would never see. Can you imagine Harriet Tubman escaping from slavery, talking about, yo, all y'all brothers and sisters got to do is run like I ran? No. She said we need to overthrow the damn system.
That's right.
That created slavery. So I don't care what position a Black or Latino or Asian or Native American brother and sister sit in, it's still managing the empire. Now, we got to do what we can do in the positions that we're in because we got to eat. But man, you don't have to be a simp in those positions. You could drop information. Shucks, I do it. Brother Marco do it in his classrooms every single day, making sure that we at least wake up. In fact, we are an intervention to the same corporate narrative to at least get our children thinking a different way so they don't get caught mind, body, and soul by the ideas put out by the system.
Brother Marv, we got exactly 3 minutes left.
All right.
But listen, how do you all first? Let me say this to you all. Real Talk with Kasim is also on YouTube. We humbly and respectfully ask that you go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and hit the like and the notification bell. It helps the channel grow. This time around, with Real Talk with Kasim, we're taking this to a whole different level.
That's right.
A whole different level. And we need you all to spread the word that Real Talk with Kasim is back on. And I've come to, like, some individuals, our kings and queens in the comments spoke. They said it would be better if we came on in evening.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. So we'll make it 7 o'clock on Saturdays, or should we make it 8 o'clock on Saturdays, Marv? Because we got to come back, inshallah, God willing, if the universe allows. We got to come back on next Saturday. We need a part 2 to this. We need a part 2 to this. But it'll be, we're going to see if we get Brother Marco. Brother Marco, you in there? I got your number. I'll be reaching out to you. I need you on. We'll see if you reach out to Brother Kerry, we get Brother Kerry on with us, the brother who you spoke about in the book. And I'm going to reach out to the queens. I'm going to reach out to Sister Maritza and some other queens. We're going to get on. We're going to have a collective segment, which will be part 2 next Saturday.
Revolutionary family discussion, man, because that's what we ultimately need for sure. Listen, man.
And I want pardon me. I want to label this one. Where do we go from now? Not from here, from now. Where do we go from now?
Oh, well, listen, I like Dr. King's. Where do we go from here?
So that is going to be the topic.
Chaos or community. Right.
There you go. There you go.
That's Dr. King.
Chaos or community. So we're going to do like that. But hold on. We got to. The King, Brother Brian, says, what I continue to ponder upon is how we as a race are still referred to in the Constitution. We need to push the Senate to have that change to get a stronger foothold. But that's for next week's conversation.
Absolutely,
Next week's conversation. Right. And brother Dr. Giles says, my brothers, I'm signing off. Great job, my brothers.
Thank you,
brothers. We love you as well.
Absolutely. Good brother right there.
So everyone, we are humbly and respectfully asking you all to tune in next Saturday. Mark, what time do you think about it? 7 or 8?
I let the people decide, man. You know, that's it, man.
We'll put it out there. We'll put a post out there.
Right.
And
anywhere between 6, maybe 6, 7, to see what the people say.
All right. So that's what we'll do. So stay in tune. We're gonna let Brother Marv close out. But I'm asking you all to stay locked and loaded, stay in tune. We'll Real Talk with Kasim on Facebook under Kasim Washington's Facebook page, which is my Facebook page, as well as YouTube. You can go on YouTube straight to Real Talk with Kasim. And we need you all to please go in, like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Hit the notification bell. We got the Queen, Tina Jenkins. Tina, what's good? Beloved, how you feeling, Queen?
Salute to you, sis.
Salute to the Queen.
No,
Peace
no
and blessings,
question.
beloved. And brother Brian the King said, let him know what time I would do that. I would sure do that. And
Yes.
that
Yes, no, absolutely,
brother, this was dope.
absolutely, and
Let's grow this.
that's the thing. Listen, interestingly enough, as we're sitting in the midst of, like I said, a winter in America, as Gil Scott Heron's song says, you know, a sister, great revolutionary sister by the name of Anna Arnold Hedgeman wrote a book, The Gift of Chaos. The Gift of Chaos. And we need to begin to think of that. What gifts are being offered right now for us to organize a new world in the vision of the people? What better? You know, look, folks are going to suffer, and this is where community comes in. We have to mitigate the suffering of the people that's ultimately going to happen. You know, each one feed one. We have to take care. We have to take care of each other. All good-minded people. Sellouts can listen, as Dr. Clark says, you go over there, you stay over there. You know, that's where your ass stay. But I'm talking about right-minded people. Listen, none of us know it all. We don't always get it right, but I have faith in the people when we come together, you know. And it just ain't about, you know, Joe brothers with degrees or this, that. We want everybody contributes to this. Right. Yeah, for certain, it will. But now the question is, you know, where do we take this? Because we have to. We have to take an active role and begin to create the world that we want. But we have to be clear as to what we want. Do we just want a few people being included? No, that ain't what we want. We want a whole systematic change. You can't get that with the system as it exists. Audre Lorde, I'll close with this. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They can't.
They won't let it. There you go.
No.
No, it's not so much that they won't let it. It can't.
No. So it can't. It wasn't ever. Like back to what Marco said. It's for the owners. So now we have to begin to design something for the people. Those interests clash. So it can't be a mix. It's going to be for the owners or for the people.
There you go.
The enemies of the sun ain't trying to share. In fact, I would say this. They understand that their empire is coming to a close. When I was at Hampton, Dick Gregory spoke at my graduation. He said, white supremacy is dead, but we refuse to bury it. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily, but it's dying. It's dying. You know, it's ultimately dying.
Brother Kerry says, each one feed one is the ultimate upliftment for us all. This is the brighter light moving forward.
That's right. Absolutely. You know, that's what the Panther said. Survival pending revolution. Because we need something new.
Brother Bryant the King says, people must know that we must be ready to lose, a few to gain.
Yeah.
Get ready.
I mean, and that's what it is, you know. And that's ultimately because as Brian talked about earlier, these folks are trying to purge. So at this particular moment, if our political candidates ain't ready to stand, look at this. First of all, look at the Democrats just bowing down. I wish but I don't wish anything because I want the Democrats to go. So I'm not even going to say what I wish.
No, Marv, leave that for community chaos. Leave that for community chaos.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. Right.
That's going to tie right into that.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So next week, where do we go from here? Chaos or
community?
Community.
Chaos or community. That's part 2.
Yeah, that's it.
That's part 2. Marco, I just looked at my phone. I don't have your number. Marv, you got his number?
Yes, I do. Well,
right.
I'll talk to Marco anyway. I'm gonna hit him up.
All right. Say no more.
We need you on, Marco.
Yeah, Marco, we need you next Saturday. You know what I mean? If the universe allows, as well as brother Kerry.
Yeah.
You gonna reach out to the brother from the book?
Well, he ain't gonna. Nah, he's a show. He's a show by himself.
All right, but no,
No,
he can
really,
call us.
because of what he covers.
All right, but we
Yeah.
can have him call us because what we're gonna do is next week we're gonna open up the phones.
Well, no, I'm talking about just him and the show on his
No,
own.
I got you.
Because listen, man, I got a lot of people like behind the scenes that I can reach out to, man, for the show, brother.
Man, like Margaret said, it's time to grow.
That's right.
It's time to grow. But we're definitely opening up the phones next week.
Yeah, for
next
sure.
Week, we'll open up the phones so you could call in.
But we want to balance, man. We want the sisters in the we can't
we got
without the sisters, all across the board, because this is community, cross-cultural, radical movements and ideas. We need everybody in the room.
Chaos or what?
It's where do we go from here? Chaos or community? So we're coming. That was Dr. King. It might have been his last book.
That was the last one.
Right.
I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So we're going from there, brother. Anything you want to say to anybody on the way out, Mark?
Listen, man. In the words of Kwame Ture, aka Stokely Carmichael, get ready for the revolution because it's coming, and we're gonna all play a part in it. Everybody.
And brother BC said, "You've always been
always my brother. It's always love, man.
Salute, King.
That's right. Always
we appreciate you as well." For in my conclusion, our conclusion of tonight's show, we thank you all for taking the time to tune in with us at Real Talk with Kasim. Now remember, Real Talk with Kasim is also on YouTube. We ask that you please go on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and hit the notification bell. So therefore, when we come on, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in with us. And also, it will be a gift of ours if you all would spread the word that Real Talk with Kasim is back on, and we will be back next Saturday, and we're going to set the time for 7. We're going to make it 7. Instead of worried about it, we're just going to make it for 7. For you all who are in and listening right now or will be listening later on, Real Talk with Kasim, next Saturday, 7 p.m. Next Saturday, 7 p.m. Spread the word. The show is going to be powerful. And always remember, information is free. Is what you do with it that costs.
That's right.
Information is free. Is what you do with it that costs. Kings and queens, wear your crown well. It may tip, but hold it upright. From Real Talk with Kasim to you all, we thank you. Remember, this name of the show is titled Real Talk with Kasim. It's speaking with me through the universal divine structure, along with the kings and queens that come on the show. But one thing I want to let you all know for sure is just because my name is on the show, it's not about me. It's about we.
That's right.
Peace, light, love, and liberation. Brother Greg says, salute Brother Marv, class of 83. He's soupy or soup. Greg, you so corny.
That's my man, DJ Greg. Let it be known.
But peace and blessings to you all.
All right.
Peace and blessings to you all. Brother Marv, thank you, brother. I love you, King. Love you, Cuzzo.
I love you, man. The words of Fred Hampton, peace if you're willing to fight for it.
There you go.
That's it.
We're going to go out on that note right there. Peace, light, love, and liberation.
That's it.